Welcome back to our deep dive into shiny object syndrome. Last time, we uncovered some of the psychology behind this challenge, and we even started exploring some strategies for slowing down and being more intentional.
Right. Things like implementing that 24-hour rule before you jump into anything new, practicing mindfulness to be more aware of our impulses, and of course, defining our priorities to kind of create a roadmap.
It's like laying the foundation, right? But even with the best intentions, staying committed to our goals can be tough, especially when things get a little challenging or those shiny distractions just keep popping up.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where accountability comes in. It's about putting systems and structures in place that help you stay on track and motivated, especially when your willpower just isn't enough.
So like a support system to keep us moving forward even when we hit those bumps in the road.
Exactly. Think about it. You're way more likely to stick to your workout routine if you have a gym buddy who's expecting you to show up.
Oh, definitely. Having someone to share the journey with makes all the difference.
And that same principle applies to achieving any goal. When you have these external accountability mechanisms, it creates a sense of responsibility and it really helps you stay committed even when your motivation starts to fade.
So what are some practical ways that we can build that accountability into our lives?
Well, one really effective technique is to set specific goals with deadlines. So instead of just saying, I want to write a book, set a clear target. Something like, I will finish the first draft of my 50,000-word novel by December 31st.
Yeah, having that deadline makes it feel more real.
Exactly. And you can break down that big goal into smaller milestones and celebrate those mini wins along the way to keep yourself motivated.
It's like a roadmap, right?
Whoa.
With checkpoints to mark your progress.
Another powerful tool, finding an accountability partner. This could be a friend, a colleague, a mentor, even a coach, someone you trust, who you can check in with regularly. You share your progress, your challenges, and they hold you accountable.
It's like having a cheerleader and a coach rolled into one, someone who believes in you and supports you.
That's it. And don't underestimate the power of community. Surround yourself with people who are also working towards their goals. Join a mastermind group, find a writing buddy, or even just participate in an online forum.
There's just something about knowing you're not alone on this journey, that others are facing similar challenges.
That sense of camaraderie can be so powerful. Now, even with accountability, we're going to encounter setbacks and failures along the way. It's just part of life. But it's how we respond to those setbacks that makes all the difference.
So it's not about avoiding failure, it's about learning from it.
Exactly. And that's where a growth mindset comes in. It's about embracing challenges. See those setbacks as opportunities for learning, for growth, rather than proof that you're not good enough.
How do we shift our perspective to embrace this growth mindset?
Well, instead of getting discouraged when you hit a roadblock, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I adjust my approach? What can I do differently next time?
So turning those failures into valuable feedback.
Precisely. Remember, everyone makes mistakes. The key is to not let them define you.
It's a process of continuous improvement. We're always learning and growing.
Now, we've talked about setting goals, accountability partners, and developing a growth mindset, all crucial for staying focused. But there's another piece of the puzzle, self-care.
Self-care, that seems a little counterintuitive, doesn't it? I thought we were trying to be more productive.
It might seem that way, but here's the thing. When we're stressed, overwhelmed, and burnt out, our willpower just disappears, and we become way more susceptible to distractions, to those shiny objects.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that. When I'm exhausted, my brain feels like it just can't focus on anything.
Exactly. It's like trying to pour from an empty cup. You need to replenish your energy, take care of yourself to have the mental and emotional capacity to really go after your goals.
So how do we actually prioritize self-care without feeling like we're neglecting our responsibilities?
It doesn't have to be complicated. Start with getting enough sleep. Sleep deprivation, it just wrecks your focus, your energy, your decision-making.
Like trying to run a marathon on an empty stomach.
Exactly. Pay attention to your nutrition, too. Fuel your body with good food.
Treat our bodies like temples.
Yes. And don't forget about movement. Even a short walk or a quick yoga session, it can do wonders. Helps reduce stress, clears your head, and boosts your mood.
Finding little ways to move our bodies throughout the day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
And remember, self-care also means making time for activities that you truly enjoy, the things that bring you joy and help you recharge.
This is where those hobbies and passions come in, right? The things that remind us why we're doing all of this in the first place.
Absolutely. Reading, painting, music, nature, whatever brings you peace.
It's about nurturing ourselves, So self-care helps us manage stress and stay grounded. Anything else we can do to minimize those shiny objects?
One final strategy, especially in today's world, is to avoid comparison.
Oh, the comparison trap. So easy to get caught up in, especially online.
It is. And that constant comparison can really fuel shiny object syndrome. We see someone else having success and we feel like we need to jump on that bandwagon too, even if it doesn't fit with our own goals.
It's like trying to keep up with everyone online, always striving for the latest thing.
Exactly. And that's a recipe for disaster. Distraction, dissatisfaction, burnout. Remember, everyone's journey is unique. What works for one person may not work for another.
It's about honoring our own path.
Instead of comparing yourself, focus on your own progress, your achievements, your own growth.
Celebrating our wins no matter how big or small.
That's it. Remember, social media is often just a highlight reel. Don't get caught up in the comparison. Focus on gratitude for what you have and being true to yourself.
Focusing on our own lane. This has been such a good discussion about the strategies for overcoming shiny object syndrome. We've talked about accountability, developing a growth mindset, prioritizing self-care, and avoiding comparison.
You've covered a lot of ground.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll talk about some more specific techniques for actually putting these strategies into action and breaking free from this trap.
I'm looking forward to sharing some practical tools to help you create a life that's more aligned with what truly matters to you.
Welcome back to our deep dive on shiny object syndrome. We've explored the psychology, the challenges, and even some powerful strategies for staying focused.
Yeah, we've talked about slowing down, defining those priorities, embracing accountability, and even nurturing a growth mindset, and prioritizing self-care, of course.
But now let's talk about how we can actually use all of this. How can our listener put these strategies into practice in their daily life? It's one thing to understand the concepts. It's another to actually, make them work for you.
You're absolutely right. It's like having a car without an engine, right? Knowledge without action isn't going to get you very far. So let's talk about some techniques, some tangible techniques that you can actually use to break free from this shiny object trap.
One thing I keep coming back to is just feeling overwhelmed by all the ideas and opportunities. It's like my brain is constantly coming up with new projects, and it's hard to know where to even begin.
I hear that a lot. And that's where this idea of a parking lot can be really helpful. It's basically a designated space, a place where you can capture all those shiny objects, the ideas, the opportunities, those potential projects, without letting them completely derail your current focus.
So instead of trying to do everything at once, we're just acknowledging those ideas and then setting them aside.
Exactly. Think of it like a holding area where you can collect those shiny objects without feeling like you have to jump on them right away.
So what does a parking lot look like in real life? Is it a notebook, a list on our phone?
Whatever works best for you. Some people like a physical notebook, others might use a digital document, or even a project management tool, like Trello, for example.
So the format doesn't matter, as long as it's something we'll actually use.
Right. The important thing is to have that dedicated space where you can write down the shiny objects, and then you can come back to them later with a fresh perspective.
We're not just randomly collecting these ideas, we're setting aside time to think about them later.
That's a key part of it. Schedule some regular reviews of your parking lot, maybe once a month or even once a quarter, and then you go through the ideas, assess them objectively, and decide which ones are really worth pursuing.
That makes sense. It's about revisiting those possibilities instead of just having them bounce around in the back of our minds, distracting us.
Exactly. Now, another good strategy, in addition to the parking lot, is to just minimize your exposure to shiny objects as much as possible.
Oh, that sounds tough. Especially in today's world where we're just bombarded with information constantly.
It's definitely not easy, but it's really important. Start by being mindful of your media consumption. Are you always scrolling through social media, reading every news article, watching videos that just trigger your shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. It's so easy to get sucked in, especially when you're bored or stressed.
And while social media can be good for connecting with people, it can also be a breeding ground for comparison, for FOMO, and of course, those shiny object distractions.
It's like we're always looking at the best parts of everyone else's lives.
Yeah.
Makes it hard to focus on our own.
Right. So be intentional about who you follow and what you consume online. Unfollow accounts that trigger those negative feelings. And try to find content that actually inspires and motivates you, in a good way.
It's about taking control of our online experience instead of letting it control us.
Exactly. And sometimes you might even need to just take breaks from social media altogether, maybe set aside certain times a day or even whole days of the week as social media free zones. You'll be surprised how much more time and mental space you have when you're not constantly being bombarded.
It's like giving our brains a chance to breathe.
Mm.
Are there any other sources of shiny object triggers that we should watch out for, like specific events or activities?
Definitely. Be mindful of conferences, workshops, events you attend. Are they actually helping you move towards your goals, or are they just feeding into your shiny object
I've
syndrome?
been there. You go to a conference, get all excited about what everyone's doing, and suddenly you want to try everything.
I know exactly what you mean. It's like that bookstore feeling all over again. So before you sign up for anything, just ask yourself, what am I hoping to get out of this? Does it fit into my overall goals? Am I actually interested, or am I just chasing the next shiny thing?
We want to make sure the events we attend are actually helping us grow, not just adding to our to-do list.
And decluttering your digital life can be huge. Unsubscribe from all those email newsletters, podcasts, anything that's constantly tempting you with new things.
It's like creating a more peaceful online world for yourself.
Remember, it's okay to say no to all that information. You don't have to know about everything. Focus on the things that really matter to you, that are going to help you reach your goals.
Okay, so we've talked about how to minimize those distractions. But what about when you do come across something shiny that really seems interesting, even after all that? How do you decide if it's worth your time?
That's when having a framework for making decisions can be so valuable. It can help you move beyond that initial excitement and look at the opportunity more objectively.
Do you have a specific framework that you recommend?
One that's really simple but effective is to ask yourself 4 questions. One, does this align with my values and my long-term goals? Two, do I actually have the time and resources to commit to this right now? Three, what are the potential risks and rewards? And four, what would I have to say no to in order to say yes to this?
Those are good questions. It really makes you think about all the angles.
Right. And by answering those questions honestly, you'll get a much better sense of whether or not this opportunity really makes sense for you.
So it's about making smart decisions, not just going with your gut reaction.
Exactly. And if you're still not sure, don't be afraid to get advice. Talk to a mentor, an advisor, a coach, someone you trust who can give you an outside perspective.
Sometimes it helps to have another set of eyes. Well, this has been a really incredible deep dive into shiny object syndrome. We've talked about everything from the psychology behind it to practical strategies for overcoming it.
We really covered a lot.
And I think the biggest takeaway is that shiny object syndrome is a challenge, but it's not something we have to struggle with forever. With self-awareness, the right tools, and a commitment to focusing on what matters, we can break free from those distractions and actually achieve our goals.
Absolutely. Stay curious, stay focused, and keep shining.
That's it for our deep dive this week. We'll see you next